Today, let's discuss the struggle between an evil fascist empire and people fighting for freedom and justice. No, I'm not talking about the 2020 presidential election. I'm talking about Star Wars. EA has finally decided to use that exclusive license of theirs to make another game, and since Jedi Fallen Order has impressed us all, will Star Wars Squadrons live up to this new reputation? Let's decide on this starfighting episode of Virtual Reviews. If you're anything like me, you've fantasized about flying an X-Wing or a TIE fighter just as much as you've pretended to have the Force. Now I don't have to keep replaying the space missions from Battlefront 2 to live out that fantasy. No, not that one. We don't talk about that one. That Battlefront 2. Either way, Star Wars Squadrons seems to be my dream come true, and I was so excited to finally get my hands on it. Let's get into it, shall we? The first thing I noticed about the gameplay is that it wasn't too difficult or overwhelming right off the bat. A lot of other flight sims or dogfighting games, whether they're VR or not, just kind of get really overwhelming right in the beginning with a lot of complicated flight sim type stuff. And this game was really approachable. Like right when you started, it was very slow to introduce mechanics and controls and really get you comfortable with the game. It has a really great slow pace to its tutorial for people that are new to flying or dogfighting type games. When you start a new campaign, it really holds your hand through this is how you move, this is how you use the throttle, this is how you lock on, and really gets you comfortable with each new thing before it introduces you to something else. I definitely recommend playing through the entire campaign just because of how it teaches you everything you need to know for multiplayer. It'll slowly work you through advanced concepts and mechanics and introduce you to every single different type of starfighter. When you play through the campaign, you get kind of a difficulty spike in the last couple of missions that really require you to use everything that you've learned, which is why I think that's a really good preparation for playing multiplayer. By the time you get all the way through the campaign, you'll have all the tricks and techniques you need to be effective when playing online with other players. This game probably does feel amazing for all you flight sim people out there with your flight sticks and throttles and everything, but if you're like me and you only have a controller, the control scheme is actually really intuitive and natural feeling, and I felt great playing it on a controller the entire time. There's a power routing mechanic in the game that lets you route power to either weapons, engines, or shields depending on the starfighter, and I really liked learning and using that system. It adds another level of interesting complexity for people that have played it a lot, but it's not really required so it doesn't scare off new or casual players. The game is an absolute blast to play. I have a ton of fun whenever I hop into it, whether I'm playing campaign or multiplayer, VR, or even flat screen. It's just super fun. Playing in VR is also super useful in this game because you can actually turn your head around and track ships through your cockpit windows. The experience of looking down into your cockpit displays, looking up at other ships, is really something else. It's hard to even describe. The only real gameplay complaint that I had was that it's kind of hard to tell where damage is coming from sometimes, but I think that's just part of the genre. I might just be super new to flight sim dogfight type games, but a lot of times I would die in the really hard campaign missions and not really know what was killing me. Overall, this is just a really fun and engaging game that I could play for hours on end. Playing Star Wars Squadrons in VR is immersive and exhilarating. It's honestly one of the best seated VR experiences that I've ever had. It's honestly just amazing to have another AAA VR game from a really popular franchise that's not just some sloppy VR port of a regular flat screen game. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Fallout and Doom. Making a game like this for both VR and flat screen is such a wonderful idea. It gives virtual reality a lot of exposure to people that don't really care about it or look into it, while also creating a healthy, active player base for a game that VR players want to play. All the while creating a game that's balanced between the two platforms and doesn't really give an advantage to either VR or flat screen. The game has incredible sound design, mixing all the familiar Star Wars sounds that we've come to know and love, with a bunch of satisfying sound cues for things happening in-game, like incoming missiles, getting kills, anything like that. The sound design is impeccable. The game actually looks a lot sharper and uses more detailed textures when you play flat screen, but it still just can't hold a candle to the experience of playing it in VR. When you play it on a flat screen, you don't really get the same sense of speed that you get when you're playing in VR. When I throttle up and boost while wearing my headset, I can see things zooming past in my peripheral vision, and it really feels like I'm going fast. When I'm playing on a flat screen, I don't really get that same experience. And of course, being able to look around, tracking objects and other ships while flying, while trying to turn your starship, really made me feel like a pilot.
Gameplay that made me feel like Spider-Man nearly every step of the way.
And you don't get that when you play the flat screen version. They've also created these beautiful interiors for every single starfighter, as well as the hangars and briefing rooms for both sides that you don't get to fully see when you're not playing in VR. As far as I know, when you're playing flat screen, you can't turn around inside the cockpit at all. It just really adds to the immersion when you get to look around and see all the detail that they put into these cockpits. Really, the only advantage I see for playing on a flat screen is the really nice cutscenes. They've created these beautiful cutscenes for the entire campaign, but when you watch them in VR, they just give you this kind of little virtual TV to kind of watch it on right in front of you while everything around you is black. It feels like I'm watching these beautiful CGI cutscenes on a little 720p looking ass TV. The least you could do, I feel like, is make the virtual screen larger, so I'm at like a movie theater, or at least like a big TV, but it's just this like tiny thing right in front of your face. It just kind of ruins all the excitement of playing through the campaign. I mean, I shouldn't have a bigger TV in real life than I do in my virtual life, you know? But besides that, it's honestly a fantastic experience playing this in VR. Actually, I lied. The other thing that does kind of bother me happens in both flat screen and VR. It's just more apparent when you're playing in virtual reality. It seems that this game is not necessarily as optimized as it could have been. I experienced a lot of stuttering when I played in VR, and even a little bit of stuttering when I played on a regular monitor. Now, I don't have a potato computer anymore, like I play most of my VR games at 120 on my Valve Index, and it just was very clear that I was not getting that rate when playing Star Wars Squadrons. To be fair, I didn't spend any time trying to adjust the quality settings or anything like that, but I just let it auto-detect and give me recommended settings, which usually works for just about everything else. When published by a company like EA, I kind of have a higher bar for optimization, so that's probably my biggest disappointment in this game.
What's buzzing on bridge? Someone the Empire's never gonna catch again.
Sorry, team. It's for the greater good of the New Republic.
I'll practice drifting later.
Now, real quick, I want to talk about the story just a little bit, but I'm not going to spoil it at all, so don't worry. The story is pretty much everything I want out of a new Star Wars story. It's engaging, original, and doesn't depend too heavily on the original movies. They, of course, had their one little shot of Darth Vader, because Darth Vader sells, but they didn't overdo it, and I really appreciate that. What's really important to me is that not only the overarching plot is interesting, but the individual characters are compelling as well, and I think that they've achieved that with this story. The campaign handles two-sided storytelling really well. It allows you to play as the New Republic and the Empire back and forth in a single complete storyline. The missions in the campaign are also more than just dogfights and destroying stuff. Like, there's purpose, like the missions are driven by the story. Nothing really feels like busy work or filler in this campaign. The campaign also is super good at building this tension and excitement throughout the entire story, leading up to the final couple of missions that are just incredible. I don't want to spoil them for you. You finish the campaign off with several climactic inventive missions right in a row as the finale, and it's just... oh, it's great. So all in all, Star Wars Squadrons is, like I said, probably the best seated VR experience I've ever had. It's by far the best flight sim or dogfighting game that I've ever played. And I don't think it's just being carried by the Star Wars franchise. I genuinely think that it's a fun and interesting game. And of course, I'm always happy to see big publishers putting out VR games, because it just means our medium is getting more and more popular.
Got your back.
Thank you so much for watching my review of Star Wars Squadrons. If you liked it, click the like button down below to let me know. And if you like this type of content, please consider subscribing and clicking the bell icon so you're notified whenever I post a new video. I've set a personal goal to get this channel to 1,000 subscribers by February, and if you want to be a part of that, I would really appreciate it. If you've played either version of Star Wars Squadrons, whether flat screen or VR, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And of course, I hope to see you next time. Peace! Hey, if you're still here, you should check out these other videos. If you don't know what VR headset to buy, check out my review of the Valve Index and see if that helps you decide. Also, this game Pistol Whip is super cool, and I don't think a lot of people have really heard about it, so you should go check that out and give it a little more exposure.